You're listening to Built Together, the podcast all about Blacks united in leading technology, hosted by Audrey Bell-Kearney. These stories of innovation, collaboration, and upward movement will inspire and empower you. So take out a pen and paper, and let's get the party started.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's your girl, Audrey Bell-Kearney, with another edition of Built Together, and I got a great host today. I'm so happy to have her with me. We met on Qube. Qube is the conference app. We were both speaking at PodFest back in May, and she's a founder. Like, I love that. She's a founder, y'all. She's a founder. So she's the founder of an app. We're going to talk about what that is. So, Anna DeShawn, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Audrey, for having me. I'm sorry, my puppy is ringing her bells. So
That's
sorry
okay.
for the additional background.
What kind of puppy do you have?
She's a Chorky, so she's a Chihuahua and a Yorkie mix.
Okay. We had a little dog. Her name was Diamond, and she was a poodle and Chihuahua mix. And she was the meanest little thing ever. And I think she became that mean because my nephew kicked her when she was a puppy. And so anybody came into my house with black shoes, she attacked them.
Oh no, she was traumatized.
She was traumatized. And I said to my nephew, "Did you kick the dog?" And he was laughing. I was like, "I think you kicked the dog." But her name was Diamond. That was our baby. Oh. But thank you so much for being here. So I see that you were born in Chi-Town. Tell us about Chi, because we hear all these stories. Everybody talk about the Chi. Tell us the real deal about the Chi.
I love home. I grew up here, born and raised here. Went away for school, came back home. Home is everything to me. I mean, I think, a lot of people play up the violence in Chicago, but honestly, like, if you look at the statistics, we are not number one on the list. Okay.
Right.
And so I think it just has become part of like a cultural narrative that is all Chicago is, but is so much oh, there we go. I'm back.
Yeah, you back.
All right. Chicago is a beautiful place. It's a beautiful city, a beautiful lakefront that runs from the south side to the north side, and the people are so kind. And I always say it's a mix between New York and California, that I think so. In that, and you get the South too, because all the black folks are just got somebody from the South. I mean, that's just the essence of Chicago. But the East Coast, West Coast thing, like West Coast can be kind of laid back, sort of slow moving, and then you got New York that is just so fast paced, and I think Chicago is like a mix in between the two. Like, you can get your laid back vibes while still being in a big city, with a little Southern charm, because every black person I know got somebody's families from the South, Mississippi, Louisiana, North Carolina. I mean, there's just somebody who is from the South. So for me, that's Chicago. For me, that's home, and I love it.
So do you still live there now?
I do.
Do you think you'll ever move?
My wife wants me to.
Where she want to move to?
Anywhere.
Really?
Yeah, anywhere she does. She wants to live somewhere else, but I believe that maybe we'll have a place somewhere else, but Chicago will always be home for me.
Yeah, I get that. I was born in Georgia, but I was raised in Jersey, and Georgia is always home for me. And so I used to always want to move back, and I finally got a chance to move back in 2013. And my mom used to always say, why you want to go back down to the country? Now, where we live is not country at all, but that's what she would always say, because she figured if she left, she didn't want to go back. And I was like, that's home for me. So I love it. So I get that. I get that a lot. When did you decide you want to be an entrepreneur? Because, this life we lead is not an easy life. What made you decide to do that?
I've been questioning it every day this month, Audrey. I mean, have my mom tell it. I've always sort of been my own person, had my own ideas, I've always been sort of had this activist spirit in me. And as I grew up, I've always was a leader in things, not necessarily because I wanted to be. It just sort of happened. It was just sort of in me. I couldn't just sit there and just be or let something just happen. I always felt like I had to say something about it. And so that's just always been my MO. And I did what my family wanted me to do and what I was told I needed to do with going to school. And I ended up getting my master's and all that stuff and went into corporate America. But there was just something in me. I just knew I could not always work for somebody else. Anytime I
Mm-hmm.
took any of those tests or like where they try to test your personality, being an entrepreneur was always at the top. It was always very clear that I was meant to be my own boss at some point in
Mm-hmm.
time. And the COVID was just a tipping point. I had thought for many years, would I, take the big leap of faith? I know a lot of entrepreneurs. I've seen other people do it. I've had some great examples of folks who have been successful at it, and I saw them do that, and I wanted that for myself. And I also didn't want to live life with any regrets. I felt like we had something really special with the radio station. We had this really great idea with the Qube, and there was just never enough time for me to do everything that I wanted to do and to do it at the level that I wanted to do it at, because my corporate career was a career. I was working 13 hours a day
What were
and
you
still
doing
doing
in corporate?
innovation. I was doing virtual events and webinars. So
Oh, okay.
I worked in live streaming for about 12 years and managing some like really large corporate, communications around the globe and doing EMEA, APAC, North America type stuff before COVID. And then when COVID hit, it got insane, right? It just, the whole world went virtual, right? And so it was just a really, really intense time for work and then personal, like living
Mm-hmm.
through working through COVID. It was just really intense, and it was a breaking point. It was just my breaking point, especially after we got COVID and my wife had to be hospitalized and she had to be in a bubble and she had to get the COVID treatment because we got it early on, and
Mm-hmm.
where some of the medicines weren't. It was like, well, we can give her this cocktail. So
Right.
it was just scary, and it just gave me a moment where I was just like, what am I doing with my time? And am I living with regrets? Because still at that point, right? COVID sit you down for a good 6 weeks. And so, just it was just time. And so that's what happened. I did prepare, let's be clear. Like you gotta make an exit plan. And I had been thinking about it and I was like, it's time. So save up my money, act like we was buying a house again and going out to eat, just being very disciplined so we could sustain this dream and see what we can make out of it.
So being a virtual event, what did you say it was?
Yeah, we did virtual events and webinars.
That sounds like an ideal job, like for people like
Yeah.
us. And so that
Yeah.
sounds like that. I didn't even know they had such a thing. So that sounds like a fun kind of job, was it not?
It was. It was. I mean, it was until it wasn't, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I was there for a long time, and when I started, we were still at the very beginnings of the company. It was a tech startup. It was a small, and it felt like that. It felt like a tech startup. We just
Mm-hmm.
weren't in Silicon Valley, right? So we started when we was 20 something years old, and those folks are my family today. Like we were in the trenches. We would be running webinars for folks North America time, Latin America time, in Europe, in Asia, around the world, around the world, and working with some of the biggest companies in the world to do that. I finished my career running broadcasts for Mike Bloomberg, right? I mean, it was just that was my world. But
Wait a minute. Listen how she said that. Like, oh, I finished my broadcast, running broadcast with Mike Bloomberg. Like that's tiny, y'all. So just in case y'all don't know who Mike Bloomberg is, Bloomberg TV. That's Mike Bloomberg, right? I watch
yeah,
Bloomberg TV. Asian markets. I watch them all. Bloomberg. That's the Bloomberg she's talking about. You know, the one that was
yeah,
ran for president for like a second. That Bloomberg. Yeah, that one. That's the one.
that
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
it's true. It's true. It's true. And I was running a whole account, and it's definitely a dream job for me. So I never felt like I was out of communications. I always felt like I was still doing the work that I went to school for. It just wasn't the passion work, right? It was
Mhm.
what I was trained to do, and I was good at it. For all intents and purposes, anyone who was in my position would not have quit their job. I was at the height of my professional career. And I had been there for a long time. So I had seniority, all these things. I had the respect of my colleagues. Everybody knew how hard I worked and how much I gave to my clients. But I also knew that if I gave that much energy to my own stuff, if I gave even a quarter of what I gave to corporate, to myself and to my businesses, I could grow something special if I just had the time. A lot of people thought I was doing E3 radio full time when I had this corporate career. And I would laugh. I'll be like, you think I do this full time? This is like, no, this is a passion project. This is what I do at nights and on the weekends, you know. Um, but it did give me some perspective
Mm-hmm.
that it's possible, you know, if I can just figure out the magic sauce and make it work. So
So
yeah.
we're gonna talk about E3, and then I want you to talk about saving the money so you can make the exit. So what is E3, and
Mhm.
when did you launch that?
Yeah, E3 Radio is our online radio station. We launched it. Our first show was in November of 2009. And I'm almost certain I was talking to myself. I'm sure of it. I was talking to myself, Audrey. Yeah, my first guest was Gender Just, and we were on the Blog Talk radio platform.
Yep.
And so, you know,
Yep.
that's where it started because that's
Yep.
what was happening in 2009 was Blog Talk. And so I started it then because I wanted to tell the stories. So I didn't feel like anybody was covering Black LGBTQ life in Chicago and around the country. And there was a
Mm-hmm.
lot going on in our community. And I wanted to tell those stories. And so that's why I started the show, and which then turned into a radio station. And it's taken a lot of different forms over the last 12 years. I produced a lot of various shows because Blog Talk, you got this time, this day. And then we transitioned to being on all the time. And that's what we are today. And then the evolution of E3 is the Qube because we know we needed to put the audio into an app to make it
Mm-hmm.
easier for folks to listen to the station on the go. And then we wanted to solve this podcasting problem we saw happening where Black and brown and indigenous folks and queer trans folks of color weren't being amplified. And so
Mm-hmm.
that is where we lead into the Qube. But yeah, we started in 2009 telling stories.
You know, it's so funny because I think mostly all podcasters started out on Blog Talk. That's why I started 2009 on Blog
Yeah,
Talk. But here's the thing: I wish I would have had the forethought like you to keep it going because after my 215th episode, literally, I was like, "Yeah, I got this. Is I ain't making no money with this. This thing is not working." And so I stopped. You know, and I wish I had kept going because it podcasting is still very young, even though it's been around for some time. It's only like 1.9 million podcasters. When you put that in respect to how many YouTube channels there are and TikTok channels, it's in the hundreds of millions, if not the billion. We have 1.9 million podcasters, and out of that 1.9, about 725 are actually active, which means they do at least one episode a week. That's active, right? So we are
yeah,
still very, very, very young, but we all started over on Blog Talk. And I remember I gotta tell you a quick story. Listen,
love it.
one Blog Talk, right? And this guy calls in and he's talking trash. And so the good thing about Blog Talk, people call into your show talking trash, you can just hang up on them, click,
That's
and you
right.
got our tone. And that's what I loved about Blog Talk because it was easy to do a real live call-in show. So that made it feel like you were really doing radio because I came from radio too.
Mhm.
I had two radio shows on two different stations. And so when Blog Talk came out, it was an easy transition for me over there. Now, for you, you started on Blog Talk and then you put E3 on an internet radio platform. Was that a
That's right.
transition? How did you make
Oh,
that transition?
yeah, it was a big transition. It was a big leap. We didn't know what we were really getting ourselves into to do 24-hour programming, you know. But the what happened was eventually the technology caught up with what we were doing. So
Mm-hmm.
as you know, a lot of in the beginning online streaming originated from inside of traditional radio studios
Mm-hmm.
because the Comcasts of the world needed to get to the internet and
Right.
not just on the transmitters. And so a lot of the technology in the beginning you had to originate in a real studio versus
Mm-hmm.
being online. But we started online. So those that model didn't work for us. So, you know, we wanted to go live 24/7 a lot earlier, but the tech hadn't gotten there yet. Because it's really challenging. You already know marketing is just as important as the content.
Yep.
And good songs aren't made, they are marketed. And that is true for absolutely
Right.
everything. And so it was really hard to tell people, like, tune in on Thursdays at 10, Tuesdays at 2, Wednesdays at 3, you know, instead of just being on all the time. And so
Mm-hmm.
we just knew we needed to make the change. And eventually the tech caught up and these platforms emerged where it was just like online only, just online only. And we were like, great, let's load up our music. Let's get our licensing with ASCAP and all these other places so we don't get sued for no copyright. And then let's start this station and let's do it like this. And they came with live options so we could still do live shows. You know, the call in was the challenge though, because of taking calls in and out and all that. So we didn't do that, but chat made it possible to talk with folks. And so we transitioned. It was necessary. And so today, now we're looking to create our own app so that folks can listen on the go.
That's so cool. I thought about doing radio, like because I came from radio and I love podcasts, and I was like, I'm gonna go
Yeah.
radio. I don't know if you remember this, but I'm sure you do. 365 Live was it. That
Oh
was your
yeah.
first radio, like
Yes.
365 Live, and they had like all the music, all the everything. And I'm like, that's great. And what was crazy is now that I think about it, I think I probably paid for my podcast platform what they were charging back then for internet radio. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, and if I and I think right now, yeah, that's what they were charging. But I thought about doing even now, I do Good Morning with Net 5 days a week live, but I want to expand, but I'm a little scared. Like I'm like, oh my God, do I really want to have people coming on this time and that time? Because I still got the radio mindset and mentality. So
Yeah.
I think about that a lot. But like you said, like so trying to run a 24-hour station, do you have a host 24 hours? Are they coming
No.
on? Oh, so it's pre-recorded.
No, we ain't. Yeah,
How you
it's
do it?
pre-recorded. It's pre-recorded. We load up the music. We do it by genre. And what we started to do was like, we had to think about our mission. We want to play queer artists. We want to play queer music. We want to highlight queer news stories. Like, how can we do that in a really thoughtful way? So we have blocks of times where we only play queer artists. We have blocks of times that's Chicago's finest, where it's only Chicago artists. And we had a 90s show. And so it was 90s at 9. And so you tune in at 9 o'clock if you want to hit the 90s. And so we sort of built it in a way similar to NPR builds their shows, but with a music focus. And then I started doing my own show live every day, Wake Up with Anna and Friends, which was a great time. I'd pre-record some interviews, but then play the music live, and then I'd be on TikTok, and then you're just trying to figure out what works. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, the show Wake Up with Anna and Friends became a pivot to the Queer News podcast, which we started in November, and it's been going so well. I'm really proud of that work. But like, it's like a pivot because I got stopped getting joy, because you already know you do a lot of shows, and there just hits a point where maybe you're not getting no joy from it no more. It could be just fine, but it's just not giving you what it used to. And that's what happens to me from time to time. And then I'll be like, all right, time to end it. Do something different. Because it just sucks the life out of me. And so the show was sucking the life out of me a bit. And I just kept pivoting to see what was working, what felt good, and what felt good. And that's really something I hold pretty true, is I got to stay relevant out here while trying to grow this business, but it got to make me happy.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what's the point,
It's so funny you say that because you're right. I was hosting 6 podcasts, me hosting all of them, and co-host. I was hosting 4, co-hosting 2, and I still co-host kind of like 2 right now, and host 2 by myself, so still 4. But a couple of them, I'm like, you know what? I'm just tired. I don't even want to do them anymore. And they sit
Yeah.
on my network, and they just sit there. I mean, the content is good and it's evergreen, so it can just sit there. And for the longest time, I would beat myself up like, oh my God, I need to record an episode, but I couldn't even make myself record it. Like it was just like, I can't even make myself record an episode. And so you do get burnt out. And, we call it in podcasts, we call it pod fade, but I
Right.
don't get pod fade from Good Morning Gwinnett so much. Like I get up, and maybe because it comes on early in the morning, that's my best time of the day. But I get up and I'm ready to go. Right now, when I get
Yeah.
finished with that, I'm like, oh God, I gotta do something else, which is where I am. Let me ask you this, because this is one of the things that I know a lot of podcasters have been struggling with from forever, and you have a whole station. How have you been able to monetize the station, and make money from it? Because that's a question that we get all the time. Like people ask me all the time, I want to start a podcast. Somebody told me one time, Audrey, am I gonna make any money from the podcast? I said, well, you're gonna have to do a lot of work. Like I'm just gonna be honest with you. Like it's not gonna fall in your lap. So you're gonna have to do the work. But how have you been able to monetize a radio station? And then we're gonna jump into the app in a few minutes.
Yeah. So I left corporate on the sales side. And so a lot of that training has helped me tremendously, learning from I think, some of the best sales folks in the business on
Mm,
how to build relationships. And, podcasting can be a hobby, and it can be something you on going in that route, but the moment you want to do it seriously, it becomes a business.
Yeah.
And that's really how you have to think about it. And if you are going into it thinking about money and thinking of it as a business, then you need to think about, are you a good salesperson?
Mhm. Mhm.
Is that something that really brings you joy to sell yourself? Are you capable of doing that? And if your answer is no, then you have some decisions to make. You can either choose to hire somebody or pay somebody to do that sales work for you and that legwork for you, or you figure out other ways, through the platform, hosting platform. I say you jump on some of these workshops with some of these amazing people in the podcasting space talking about how to monetize and figure out what's going to work best for you. Because I feel like I could probably sell anything. I can sell myself. It's not easy. It's something I have learned how to do over time and trained myself how to do it, even though at times it can be very challenging. But for me, it is absolutely about relationships. People trusting my platform, trusting that we're doing the right thing, trusting we're reaching people, trusting we're telling good stories, and doing good work. And so once you build that level of trust and you couple it with good relationships, then you can begin to send things out like, hey, you want to spend some money? Because they believe you're reaching people,
Yeah.
right? Because media advertising is tricky. The ROI on that is very tricky. Um, Showing impact is challenging. Like it's not an easy thing to do. So people really have to trust that you are reaching the people.
Right. You
So
know what?
yeah.
What I found, I was in someone interviewed me on a radio show, internet radio show in Atlanta, and they sort of the interview, the numbers was showing live because it was a live interview, and I was like, wait a minute, but it was like millions. I was like, what? So in my mind,
Mm.
I'm thinking, wait a minute, I'm doing this all wrong because so the guy who was manning the boards and everything, it was four of us sitting at a table with the show host. He was manning the boards. When we went to a song, he was like, yeah, these numbers off the chart. And I'm thinking, real, it was millions of people listening at live. And I was like, how is that
Wow.
possible? How does that work? But of course, nobody would tell me. They was like, well, they was giving me the runaround. They didn't want me to know. And I was like, okay, I'm
Oh,
a guest. So don't tell me. That's fine. But I just thought that was amazing. And I think about, when you look at podcasting and internet radio, they definitely are not the same. Even though some of us may think that we're doing it, is not the same. So can you talk a little bit about the difference between the two, and how can people, if they want to pivot into internet radio, and what that means for real? Because it's not like podcasting. So I'm gonna come on live, and that's me. I'm gonna come on live, and 4 days a week, and it's not like running a station. So talk a little bit
yeah.
about that pivot.
Yeah, I think yeah, internet radio is a different beast because you're competing with some major players, and there's also not a
Mhm.
lot of money out here, um, you know, for that. I If you don't have 500,000 followers or more, internet radio is tough because the measurement tool and the way people look at what makes a successful radio ad campaign are
Mhm.
quite a bit different than how they look at a successful podcasting ad campaign. The
Mhm.
expectations are really different.
Wow.
Um, and I believe that the expectations are really different, in all the mediums. You have different expectations for television than you do for radio and you do for podcasting. And there's no different just because they're both audio mediums. They're both, it's challenging to find an audience. I think the best thing folks can do though is figure out who you want to reach. And then you
Mhm.
just got to go all in,
Mhm.
all in. I don't care what it is. And the more specific you can be, of course, the better it is. And y'all have heard that a lot, I'm sure. But it can't be overemphasized because you see how many people do it wrong all the time too.
Mhm.
You want to, and I started that way at the very beginning. E3 was not for queer folks technically, like
Mhm.
not on paper. The logo didn't even have a rainbow in it. It was purple
Mhm.
and white. I
Mhm.
didn't want to get more specific. And then it became clear to me that that was all I cared about. But I had
Yeah.
to get to that point,
Yeah.
so there's somebody who wants to reach your audience. You just have to find your audience, get them hooked and to trust you and build relationships. And then other people who want to reach that audience will find you. Like that's how I have been able to monetize the station. And honestly, I'm still learning every day. I pivot all the time. I make new decks, new angles, what's hot right now, what's working, trying to stay on top of what's the best way, people's budgets. We about to head into a recession if we ain't already in it. They ain't gonna say it yet because I don't think the numbers have come out, but it feel like one with the way inflation is. So how are people feeling about their money? How should can you get that same package at that same price? You kind of gotta really stay on top of what's going on in the world.
Yeah, it's so funny because, and everything you said is true. Thinking about like where we are, where we're going, and making those pivots. Sometimes you have to just say, I'm gonna pick a lane and I'm gonna get in that lane and stay. And what I find for multi-passionate entrepreneurs, that's hard. That's like going through like 12 steps. Like, okay, or you get in the lane, stay in the lane. It's like I need to go to therapy just to stay in my. I have a shirt that I created called I have entrepreneur ADD, because I would get in the lane and the next thing I know I was out the lane, right? So finding your audience is so true. I remember when I talked to somebody about when I launched Good Morning Gwinnett, and it'll be 4 years old in December. I was like, I don't know who I'm talking to. And he was like, what's the name of the podcast? I was like, Good Morning Gwinnett. He said, what is Gwinnett? I said, it's the county where I live. He's like, that's who you're talking to. I was like, oh, because I really didn't. All I know is I wanted to get up. I wanted to play music. I wanted to do the horoscopes. I wanted to have fun. And I would just get up and talk about what was going on. And he was like, Audrey, that's your niche. And I'm like, wait a minute, really? So, but that's hard for a lot of people trying to find that niche. You have been fortunate enough because of who you are to find yours. But for a lot of people, it's like, do I have another entrepreneur podcast? It's so many, Am I going to talk to women in business, men in the business? Who am I talking to? It's so hard to find that person to talk to. And I have a bunch of clients and they ask me that all the time. I help a pastor launch a podcast, and she could have had something like Joel Osteen, right? But we were having a discovery session, and she's like, I just want to do something because every time I'm talking to the pastors, they get up on the pulpit and they talk, they preach the sermon, and behind closed doors, they're crying in the dark. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that's the name of the podcast, Crying in the Dark. I said, you're talking to pastors. She fell in love and she launched it, and she's been doing really well, but she didn't know. She knew she wanted to do one, but she didn't know what. So trying to figure out who you want to talk to is really important. I was talking for hundreds of episodes. They know who I was talking to, just talking like they'll show up, that they'll show up because I didn't know.
Yeah. I think it's a culture too, because we're taught that like if you build it, they will come. Like this is like Field of Dreams. This is not the Field of Dreams. Like everybody, like literally everyone has a dream. It's just a matter of like who chooses to execute it. Like who takes the courage and like has what they need to take that big leap of faith. You can't just build it and they will come. There's so much out here. You got to build it, find your people, execute, pivot, evaluate. Like there's a lot that comes along with it. And honestly, like this has been a tough month. It's probably been the toughest month I've had since being my own entrepreneur, being my own boss since February 2021. This has been a tough month. It's been a lot of no's. Money is low, capital is low. It's tough. It is tough out here. I tell people all the time when they ask me, like, I got one tattoo on my whole body. It is just one. Okay, it's about just that one.
Yeah, just that one. That needle hurt, girl. When I tell you that thing hurt me so bad, I was like, yeah, never again. Well, I was like, girl, God bless you, because that one killed me. I was like, oh yeah, never again.
Yeah, my wife has so many tats. But I was like, no, I just want this one simple thing. But what it says is trust your faith. Mm-hmm. And I put this on my body because I know I was going to need to remind myself every single day, all day, to trust my faith, because you don't know when or how. You just don't. Like I wake up in the morning and I really don't know how my day is going to go. I have this idea that I have on the board of what needs to get done, but what lands in my inbox, what team member has something going on in their life today, like I just have no clue like how my day is going to go. All I can do is set the best intention I possibly can when I wake up in the morning and do everything I can to go get it, whatever it is that particular day. And a couple of weeks have been real challenging. And so just it's, staying grounded, using the tools, prayer meditation, centering myself, reminding myself, all those things.
It's so funny you say that because I feel the same way. And I said when I get finished the show before I go eat my mussels, I was going to do a new vision board because I have a client and she's so funny. She's a nurse, but she said to me, she said, "Look, I know you think I'm not serious." She said, "I'm dead serious. My date is May 16th, 5:01 p.m. 2023. That's my date." And I was like, it
Mm,
was that specific. And I was like, so when I got finished talking to her yesterday, I was like, I'm gonna do my vision board because I'm not that specific. So I get it because it is rough, and being an entrepreneur is not easy for a lot of people. And when you in this thing and not people, a lot of people don't understand what you're doing. Forget about tech because that's a whole nother monster by itself. You can start a flower shop and people like, why you want to do that? Forget about trying to launch a tech company, which is what you're doing. So you came from the space because you started with the startup. You saw what went on in the trenches. What made you say, you know what, I'm gonna do the same thing? Because I'm sure you saw some things that would make you say, "Ooh, child, I'm not doing that." But you did it
yeah,
anyway. What made you do that?
it's true. um, it's because I just knew it was the right. I just knew it was the right move. I knew it was the next step. Audio doesn't just live on websites. Audio lives in our pockets. It lives in our fingertips. We had to get closer to people's fingertips with the radio station. The podcasting piece grew out of conversation with my two co-founders, my two best friends, who have been so incredibly supportive and who are always want to see the vision come to life, and they have helped me through that process. So when we started having these early conversations, it just emerged that we were all challenged with trying to find new podcasts to listen to by
Mm-hmm.
Black folks,
Yeah.
and we were like, well, maybe we can solve both of these problems at the same time. And so the Qube emerged out of those conversations, and it's one of these things where when you sort of have the entrepreneur mindset, you do have to follow your gut.
Yeah.
You got to follow these moments where it's like you can't let it pass you by.
Right.
Like, that's a great idea. We should do that. And I knew I had the enough tech experience to understand what it was going to take, even though there's so much more I did not know. Let's be
Mm-hmm.
clear. There's always going to be things you don't know until you get in there and start doing it. But it is a lot. But I'm grateful for the experience I did have to understand what needs to be done, understanding what can happen, what goes wrong, not to get frustrated. Also, how developers think, how
Mm-hmm.
designers think, versus maybe like what the consumers think and what this market is calling for and what we should be doing, right? And so tying all those things together, I just felt like it was possible. I
Mm-hmm.
saw what we were able to build at this tech startup. I saw where we started and where we ended, right? And I saw them go from I think I was employee 50 or something to 120 some people to getting acquired by a 40,000 people company. Right. I saw that growth. I saw it happen. So I knew it was possible. I just didn't know everything was going to take to get it done. And we still not done yet. Right. But I
Right.
just felt like we could do it.
And that's so cool that you say that because it's not a lot of it's not a lot of us out there on these platforms. I remember when I first got invited to speak at Podfest, one of my friends, a white guy, he was like, "Audrey, go and tell them to put you on the stage." And I'm like, he says, because when I go to Podfest, they all look like me. And he has like red, he has a red beard. He has a bald head and a red beard. And I was like, oh, okay. And I did. Just so happened Chris and his wife are just amazing people. And I went, I pitched something. Hey, let me show you how to get a Alexa for your podcast, and people like, oh, okay. So that went over really well because I don't think they would have put me on the stage just because I was Black. I had to bring something to the table, and I brought that experience with me to the table. So you got to be, if you get invited to the table, you need to be able to bring something to the table. Like, you know what I'm saying? Let's talk about that for a second because I'm sure you've heard it because you're building a tech company. When it comes to funding African American in tech, right? We don't get the type of backing and funding that most people do. How have you been able to fund the Qube? And how is it? How difficult has it been?
Yeah, it's challenging. Ain't no doubt about it. That was part of my nose from this past month. Were from venture capital opportunities. every vision, the vision you have ain't the vision for an investor all the time, and so you really do have to separate the two. We came out the gate with a crowdfunding campaign. So that's how we started with the funding journey of the Qube. So we did a crowdfunding campaign in June of 2021. And for me, fundraising was a learned um, skill through my nonprofit work that I had done in the community here in Chicago. And so I knew I wanted to do it in June because it's Pride Month. And so that's a month I knew fit my audience,
Mm-hmm.
because timing is so incredibly important with fundraisers. Um, and so that was the first thing we did. That month we brought in $70,000, which was incredible. So grateful for that. And so that kickstarted us because I knew how much we needed to do the first part of the app. I had quotes from our developer, I had quotes from the designer. I was like, okay, this is what we need. Let's go out and get this. And we made it happen. And then from there, that gave us the momentum. I did a pitch competition, lost the first time, won the second time when they asked me back, right? We What else did we get? Oh, we got a grant from a foundation, got a fiscal sponsor to sponsor us. Big ups to Sisters in Cinema, who is an amazing organization here in Chicago. They sponsored us. So we got a Field Foundation grant to create 5 podcasts for this year. And so we had some momentum last year to get a lot of work done to actually employ and pay some amazing BIPOC podcasters and hosts and producers and, the whole nine. And so now we're a year later, we survived. We did a lot of amazing work over the last year. And now it's time for us to fundraise again. And during that time, I had the opportunity to be a part of like Google for Startups Founders Academy, where I learned a lot about investors, and being part of other incubators like Goody Nation, where they always are dropping funding opportunities that you can never keep up with. Like never, ever keep up with the amount of opportunities out here. So they have been a wonderful resource. And then Women of Color Podcasters with Danielle Desir has been an amazing resource. And then also her Grants for Creators program. I signed up for that. She sends out an email every week with opportunities for funding and stuff like that. So last year it was like, we know how much money we need to get out here and go hard. And now we did a lot of great work. And now I'm out here, like, this is the progress we've made. We still need some fuel because VCs don't traditionally fund us, right? They don't fund Black folks. They don't fund women. I don't care what you're doing. It's tough. I think it's 2% or something like that, depending on which identity you want to grab today. And, that's just the reality. People fund people that they know. They fund their friends, they fund their friends' friends, their family friends, and they all just look alike, And so it's the matter of us getting in those positions to fund people who look like us. It's not that we're not brilliant. Everybody I know in these incubators have amazing ideas. It is about capital and it is about access to that said capital, not anything else other than that. And so you just got to find the people who are willing to fund your idea. That's the challenge.
It is challenging. I sent an investment text message just I think it was Saturday. It was funny because I've done this before. I've raised funds before, right? I sent out this investment because I got this new thing I'm doing. So I sent out an email saying this is what we're doing, blah blah blah. One person did say yes, but 3 of them didn't even. I guess they were like no. And so their way of not answering way of saying no was not to answer, which is funny. And I was cool with it, but I think it put them in an awkward position because I didn't hear from them like yet. And I was like, and I'm laughing because I don't feel any kind of way about it because I've been doing this for so long. So you kind of get used to the no's. You want people to say yes, but you kind of get used to the no's, but you have to get a lot of no's until you get a yes. So I had 1 yes, which is kind of cool. And
Good.
Yeah, so I had 1 yes. So I'm cool with that. When it comes to doing apps, it's so many, right? But I still think there's a lot of space, and that's a lot of space there for us as well. But I don't think people think the apps are, they're not. I don't know. I don't think they think they're important anymore because so many of them. And when I say so many, y'all, it's about 2 million in the Apple Store. That's still not a lot. So when it was time for you to fundraise, and somebody is looking at this right now saying, "I want to create an app," what does your funding requirement look like? How much money do you need? How much money did you raise? How much money do you need? And how much money do you still need to get to where you got to go?
Yeah. So Last year we raised $165,000. Right. So that's how much we needed for to get to this point. I will say, but I was very clear on my audience, and I was very clear that I have been doing this work for a long time, and I was clear that I wanted to go big or go home. Like this is my story, my journey for the way in which we proceeded about app development. Because I was like, we going big. We gonna do this the way that I know it means for us to do this. And that's just that. So I will say that. And then I will say that there's other app development where in platforms today where you can do like Bubble, where it's a no code app. And you can, it's a low funding, there's no really barriers of entry into like these no code applications. And you don't need as much funding, right? And it's an opportunity for you to test out your idea. If you are not very clear on who your audience is or how you're going to market, or if you don't feel very confident that you got that all under control, you can do something where you don't need $165,000, right? To get started. So I think it depends on where you're at in your business journey for like how much money you think you may need for what you're looking to build. Because at the end of the day, it's about product market fit. So like my challenge right now is with some of these VCs is that there are apps and they automatically, when they think of podcasting, think about Apple and Spotify, and they don't think about, and they see those as like two huge players that no one can compete with. And they're a little afraid about how do you plan to, get any type of market share in the podcasting space when there are these huge VC backed, established companies. And so I know that scares them. And they don't like necessarily risk, right? They want to make money. So for me right now, I understand that position. That's fine. But I don't see what we're doing as a competitor to those people, right? I see us as an addition to people's podcasting stacks. I want them to be able to say, oh, I wonder what like Black podcasts are out there, or where the Latinx podcasts are, like where the people of color at, and them think of the Qube. And they go to the Qube for that. And the pluses are that you don't just get the opportunity to discover these podcasts, you can actually listen to them inside the app. And you can actually, reward these creators with coins. We're still playing around with that idea. But, thinking about what that can be to make it fun. And the design looks cool and it's sexy. And, we're doing some things. And so that's the message, like, and that's the goal that I have for the Qube, is to feel that need for the community of podcasters that people have forgotten. And I feel like people have forgotten BIPOC folks in this space. And to your point around, the table, that just hits home for me so much. Shirley Chisholm is one of my sheroes, and one of her favorite quotes, one of her most famous quotes is, they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. That is the quote. And I feel like BIPOC creators have bought lots of folding chairs to the podcasting industry and have gotten no love,
right,
at all. So I think now it's a matter of us building our own tables.
I was on a podcast a couple of years ago. It was not a podcast. It was like a focus group with African American creators, and there was a young lady out of the Bahamas. She was saying how she was getting 1 million downloads, 1 million,
wow,
no sponsors. She's like, I can't get a sponsor, and my downloads are 1 million downloads, and she couldn't get no sponsors. And so I'm saying to myself, why is that the case? And I don't know why that was the case, but I don't know who she was focusing on, but she could not get sponsors, she said. And I thought that was like nuts. Like, if I'm getting that many downloads, I should be able to get at least one. She's like, yeah, I don't get any love. And so we still have that. We're still fighting for space in all of these platforms. What I would tell people, and I'm sure you would agree, keep fighting. Yes. Like, we can't give up no matter how hard it is, because we know it's hard for us all the time. We just can't give up, because at some point the table is going to turn. The tipping point is going to happen, but it will not happen if you give up. I know, because I've given up plenty of time, like, oh, this is taking too long. I ain't doing this no more. And then 12 years later, everybody making millions of dollars, and they started the same time I started. I'm like, what? So
Yeah.
don't give up. Don't do that. How close have you been to the point where we can go there and download Qube? Because I know I've been checking it out. Like, not yet. So what's the release date?
We getting close. The goal is September of this year for it to be available in the app stores for folks to download and get in there. We have done a couple of things over the last year. We built our prototype that we can send out to investors so people can see the vision from beginning to end in the app and the design. And it's not just the app that we're coming out with, we're also coming out with the website as well. So it's like we're doing a lot at one time. And so that's for September. My hope is that this month we actually got a few more days to go. The developers have been humping. The goal is to get a beta version out before this month is over to some of our partners and folks who've been Qube podcasts have been accepted into the app and our supporters, so they can break it, tell us what's wrong with it, tell us what's right about it, tell us what they love about it, so we can make some changes and updates and stuff before September. So that's the time frame, and it's important. We got to put it in people's hands. We got to give people an opportunity to discover some of this amazing content. We've accepted 94 podcasts into the app. So far, we got a big library that we're starting with, which I think is pretty dope. And my hope is that we do all the things we want to do, amplify these amazing creatives, disrupt the podcasting space, and challenge some of these major players to amplify indie podcasters and BIPOC podcasters, and then to put money into creatives' pockets. I want to create an equitable ad revenue sharing program where folks who have under 500 downloads can still make money, and then the people who have over $500 downloads can make money. And how can we do this in an equitable way where we all win and get something good out of it? So those are my three main goals.
I love that. I love that so much. And I was talking to somebody yesterday. They were talking about, they was asking me, how can I monetize? And I said, it's many ways you can do it, right? I said, and they were asking me about pre-roll, post-roll, mid-rolls, and all those. And I was explaining to them what that meant. I said, let me just be clear now. Let me just be clear. Because you're on these platforms and they give you these opportunities to use their ad networks, don't look for a whole lot of money if you're not getting a whole lot of downloads, because you're not going to get it. I said, I have almost 1,000 episodes, and I still don't break $100 from streaming. And my show is number 1 here in Georgia on the Hyperlocal Podcasting, and number 3 in Australia under news. And so I'm still not getting the type of money that I feel like I should be getting. So the fact that you have decided to build that in, that's amazing. I also wanted to tell you this because you said coin, and I want you to tell people what that means. So I at PodFest, there was a gentleman there. He was talking about he was on a platform that was allowing people to, if you were a podcast, you can get on their platform and you can give away NFTs. So instantly my mind was like, click, and I'm like, how do I get on this platform? And so I'm kind of in talks because they're very like, what's the word I'm looking for? They're not letting everybody on. Let me say that. And so I talked to them and everything. So I think they liked it enough. They want to let me on, but I'll know by Wednesday. When you say we're making sure that our podcasters can share in the revenue, we're incorporating coins, what does that mean? Because a lot of people watching this have no idea. I know what it means, but they may not know.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that, because let me not get myself in trouble in here. Now, long term, I do want to incorporate Bitcoin into the platform, because I think, first off, I love NFTs, and I think NFTs in the audio space, it's been overlooked. I think there's a lot of opportunities for people to leverage NFTs in the podcasting space. But what I meant was more of the gaming side of coins and tokens. Okay. And to get into tech, because this podcast is tech too. Apple and Google take 30% of all in-app purchases. Right. And so what I had originally thought was, we should have a tipping feature in the app where people can tip creators $1, $2, $3, if they enjoy their show. And we can maybe connect their Patreon, maybe they can connect their Stripe accounts, and then the money can go directly to them after processing fees and stuff. It's just as another way. We weren't going to take any of that money. It goes directly to the creator. Then the app developers were like, but Anna, that's still an in-app purchase. So they're going to take 30% of that dollar. And I was like, dang, like, That's a lot.
Yeah.
Someone tip you $1, they gonna take 30%, and then there's processing fees. So what you end up with 50 cent maybe
Yeah.
at the end.
Hmm.
And I was like, well, that ain't it's challenging. And so then one of the developers, we were talking, they were like, well, maybe when someone upgrades to the premium side, they get tokens or coins, and then they can tip creators with these, and then y'all can have a system where those creators then get things for a certain amount of tokens or coins, and sort of like this, sort of like the way TikTok does it, and some other platforms have incorporated, encouraging creators, right?
Hmm.
And then they get something on the back end, and so that's what we're thinking about, because um, as an engagement feature into the app, to keep people coming back and to keep creators wanting to encourage folks to listen inside the Qube. That's just another way. Like, I can get these other benefits if y'all just tip me these coins. And so, yeah, so that's what I meant. But I do know a platform. I did hear about that platform that's doing NFTs and Bitcoin. And I think I can't remember which token you're able to send to people, but I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, I do too. And when I saw it, they gave me a walkthrough and everything. I had already like did as much research as I could do on it, and I was like,
Okay.
yeah, I want to be a part of this because for me, my podcast. When I look at my podcast, which is a hyper local podcast, I kind of liken it to back in the day when they had like regional magazines, right? Like your weekly paper or whatever. That's what I kind of liken it to. And I would
Yeah.
love to have an NFT for the community. And I was like, so when I first heard about it, I'm like, that's amazing. I want to be a part of that, because I would love to say, hey, because I live in Gwinnett County. We have almost 1 million residents in Gwinnett County. We're the second largest county in the state of Georgia. We're right at 983,000. So we're 17,000 away from having 1 million, which is a lot. Um, I would love to be able to give away a million NFTs, or
Mm.
999,000, and 1,000 is a rare, like it's rare, and that's my plan. So I have an artist right now working on a commission piece for me,
Oh.
and that's going to be a part of it. So I'm excited about that, and I think that, like you said, there are so many opportunities in this space for us. But we got to stop being afraid of tech. I launched the NFT in January. I didn't know what the heck I was doing, and I was like, oh, figure this thing out, and I did. So I figured it out, launched it. Later learned, okay, that's why it didn't sell, because you should have did this and this. But I didn't know. My thing was, let
Mhm.
me just do it. Once I
Okay.
do it, I know how to do it. So there is
Yeah.
a lot of opportunities there in this space for us. But we gotta move past the fear of being afraid of technology and embracing this, so we can get our share of the market. You know what I mean? Because we're missing it. And much as I talk about it, you would think people want to jump on, but they'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. What is it? What is it again? It's okay. What is that? It's some artwork. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't want to do that. And
Yeah.
then 17 years later, it's like, oh my God, I got an NFT. I paid $16,000 for it, and you got to get one. No, no, no. I own an NFT company. No, 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 no. So we have to move past that. So I'm just excited about what you're doing. When you were talking, I was thinking about fan base. Um, Now, you know fan base?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. What I find interesting about fan base is that, and I would love to get him on the show. I should just try to get him on there because I would
Oh,
love
you
to ask
should.
him these questions. Because I feel like when I looked at fan base, I was like, this is nice because it has monetization built right into that for the creator, right? You would
Mhm.
think that we would be losing our minds behind that, but I just found out about it. And I'm like,
Oh
wait
yeah.
a minute.
It's an uphill battle. So the world he's entered into is the same way they look at the world I've entered into, except for his world's even bigger than the world that we're in. So he's going up against the TikToks and the Instagrams and the Facebooks of the world quite directly.
Yeah,
Um, quite directly. And
yeah,
so people don't flood it. And my challenge has been, where are the people? Am I gonna reach the same people over here if I just do a total switch to fan base, and so what I've been waiting on actually is for the integration to move all my videos from TikTok there. They can copy them. It was coming soon. So I'd be checking back every now and again, because I don't want to share my Instagram profile there. I want to rather share my TikTok one, and then
hmm,
start adding my videos there, from TikTok. I think what he's doing is brilliant. I
yeah,
mean, because of the monetization piece of it, I think, and because he's black, and crazy smart and has seemed to have cracked the code in the VC space, and he does a great job at telling the story. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, so I do have it. I have it downloaded. I check back often. I plan on starting to use it as soon as they add that piece, the connected from TikTok.
Yeah, I don't have a TikTok, and I have it downloaded on my phone as well, along with Wisdom. I don't know if you heard. So listen, let me tell you this.
I
This is
have heard of
exciting for
wisdom.
me. So Wisdom is African American known. She's from England. It's you, and then it's Isaac Hayes Jr., the third, Isaac Hayes' son. I don't know if he's the junior or third, but anyway.
Oh, okay.
So when I think about all the work that you guys are doing, it makes me really proud. Like, okay, we're gonna keep pushing them out. We're gonna keep pushing them out because at some point they're gonna hit. They're gonna hit
Yeah.
because you guys are dedicated. I look at fan base. I'm like, man, he has a nice subscription built right into the app. Why aren't we like flocking over there? Even me, like I'm dragging my feet. Like, oh God, I got to get on another platform. Like I got to open up another app. But I see the possibility. So I
Yeah.
love what he's doing. I love what you're doing. Let me ask you this: have you gotten pushback because I don't see why you would, because I feel like you know your audience, you know your people. But have you gotten pushback because it is a app for LGBTQ community?
Oh yeah. Oh
Really?
yeah. People don't see the market. They don't. They don't think we can reach enough people. Actually, the last no I got, they were just like, we think it's just really challenging. They actually wrote to me the business model they would support. They like, Anna, we think you could be really good at make a podcast, sell it, and distribute it. We just don't think an app is gonna work. Then they were like, but you could probably prove us wrong.
Wow.
um, yeah, and that's not the first time I've heard that. People, and also people have the misconception that this exists somewhere for somebody, that other people are doing this work, and I'm like, there's nobody's doing this work. So yeah, so for me, what's incredibly important right now is just to get the app out, uh, and just to show folks, everybody, that they're missing out on, and they're
Yeah.
missing out on some real brilliant people.
So is the app just all LBGTQ, or is it
Oh
podcasts that
no.
you guys feel is good for the platform?
Oh yeah, no, it is it's a platform for Black, Indigenous people of color and queer trans people of color. And so we've got Black podcasts, Latinx, Indigenous, AAPI folks on the platform. Um, yeah, so what we're doing is curating everything. And so that's the part where we say we have the best BIPOC and QTPOC podcasts. We say that because they have been listened to by our curation team. We've created what we call a Qube that outlines what we deem makes a good podcast, from your intro to your music quality to not having no copywritten material to being consistent, right? We've created this Qube, and we've created it for regular podcasts and for audio dramas,
Hmm.
right? And so we have two curators listen to every podcast, and they have to listen at least to 2 episodes of each podcast, and
Wow.
they rate them. They rate them. And so if they meet our minimum score, then they are accepted into the app. And so that's why we say we've got the best. I am so, you already know, we've been in this a long time. I can't stand bad audio quality. And right, the accessibility of podcasting is such that someone can start a podcast with their iPhone on top of their phone on their fourth bottle of wine. Okay, sounded like they're in the middle of nowhere, right?
Right.
Okay, so accessibility is what I love about podcasting, but it's also what's challenging about finding good podcasts,
Yeah.
because everyone isn't at that level yet. And so everybody that's accepted into the app have gone through the curation process, and it's going to be good. Even if you don't like it, you can hear, that it is a good podcast, and you might recommend it to a friend who you
Yeah.
think it actually might be a good fit for. And so that too is my hope.
I got to get my stuff tighter because I'm gonna submit, but I think I need to tighten up some things first because I'd be cutting the food on my show. So you know, I'm just gonna, I just
You can submit that podcast. What you
I
talking
be
about?
I be cutting the food. I might submit this one because I don't cut the food so much on this one. I'm real serious on this one, but
Oh,
in the morning
please cut
time
a
I be
fool,
talking
okay?
mad trash. So I don't know.
Cut a
Parsons.
fool. 1, 2, and 3. Do it. You know, it's a podcast for everybody. It ain't serious. Everything ain't serious.
All right, maybe I'll submit then. Y'all don't be too harsh with me. Just give me some feedback. Give me some, or you fix this, and I'm gonna fix it. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing too. So we talked about this. So I brought on Experience J, big ups to X, who is a wonderful podcaster, sound designer, Black woman. Check out Kiss. She's just wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So she came on to manage our curation process. And during those conversations, I was like, we really need a system for the podcasters that don't get in right away, because we're building this in community. Like, we could have built this thing and just dropped it on the podcast community. Like, yo, this is what we got. Da, 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 da. But I'm a community person, so I built it in community, getting to know people, wanting to hear what people are looking for and all this stuff. And I was like, there's going to be a point where we're not going to accept somebody into the app, and I'm going to see them at a conference. I'm going to see them out in the street. Okay.
Why you accept me?
You know what I'm saying? Like, Black folks ain't got, okay. I was like, we need a system, because part of the goal here too is to create a really dope podcasting ecosystem. So how can we also make just everybody better? And so what we're going to do is have an opt-in process where people who are accepted and those that are not can opt in to get the feedback from our curators.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, like 90% of the time, they write a note about what they thought about the podcast, their feedback about it and all that good stuff. And so we're going to have a system where folks can opt in to receive that, have a 15-minute call with one of our folks to hear that feedback so that they can improve or continue to get better either way.
Yeah, because I got about 1,000 episodes, and I still think, a lot of times you're real critical, but I still feel like I could be better, and I feel like I'm just having so much fun till I haven't put in enough time yet to get better, even though I've done like almost 1,000 episodes. So I'm gonna tighten up though, because I need to, I want to be able to play with the big boys. You want to play with the big boys? That one.
You a big boy already. We sitting on your whole network.
Yeah, that one. So listen, this has been amazing. How can people listen? I can talk media, y'all, all day, every day, and twice on Sunday. But I won't. I won't. How can they reach out to you?
Yeah, 100%. Follow us on social, right? So at Anna DeShawn, at E3 Radio, E3 Radio, at the Qube app, TheQube app on social. And then our websites are great too, E3 Radio.fm and the Qube.app, TheQube.app. And follow us there, find us there, all the good things. TikTok, just wherever you find joy on social, we'll be there, okay?
There you have it, ma'am. Fellas,
yes,
ladies and gentlemen, let me drop this in here real quick. Here we go.
Thank you again, Audrey, for having me.
You're very welcome. Thank you for taking time. I really appreciate what you're doing, and any way I can support, please don't hesitate. You want to come back, please do that too. I would love to have you come. As a matter of fact, I'm hosting a summit this Friday called Building the Black Metaverse. So hopefully next year I can have you on the panel. So if I do it, because listen, this is stressing me out, y'all. I'm stressed out. I suck at events. I suck at sales and events. So I suck at two things. But they already talking about next year. I'm like, next year, I'm trying to get past Friday. Y'all don't even understand. Trying to get past Friday. But anyway,
I love that. The Black Metaverse.
Yeah, building the Black Metaverse. I'm all in on media, and I'm all in on the metaverse and NFTs and smart contracts, all of that, because I feel like we need to be up on our game so we could compete. And the only way for us to be able to compete is to have that knowledge. And the only way to have the knowledge is for people to share it. So it's my goal to keep sharing the knowledge so we can compete. We can have a seat at the table, and they don't give us when we build our own table. Hear what I'm saying? Yes, we do. That's what we do. All right, thanks again, girl. You have a good rest of your evening. I'm about to go eat my mussels. I smell them cooking, and I'll be back again next time.
All right, thank you.
All right, have a good one.
You too.
All right, y'all. That's all I got for you. I'll be back again with another show in a couple of weeks. I'll be back bringing another great guest. You guys stay safe out there. Listen, I gotta go eat dinner. But thank you again for listening to us and tuning in. Until next time, my friends. Until next time, y'all make it a great day. Bye now.
You've been listening to Built Together, the podcast all about Blacks united in leading technology, hosted by Audrey Bell Kearney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and share it with your friends. To support the podcast, visit us on the web at www.buildtogether.com. That's www.built2gether.com. Follow us on Facebook and IG at Noise Media Network.